All right, we're on the first Mishnah on Dalet Amud Beis. Horu Beistin v'yada echad mehen sheto v'amar lahen toan atem. We had seen this case yesterday where the Gemara had clarified for us that even though unanimity is not required for the case, for them to Beistin to be chayiv to bring a par helim davar, to bring this bull sacrifice when they make an error, but they can't have any active dissenters. If even one of the Dayanim and the Sanhedrin says, you guys are making a big mistake, so then that nullifies the judgment to not make it a proper. You can have abstention, but you can't have direct opposition. Oh, shaloh haya mufla shel Beistin sham. Another disqualification will be if the senior member of the Sanhedrin is not present. He could be out of town that day, and they put someone in instead. So if they make a judgment without his presence, that also invalidates the judgment. The Gemara will explain why. Oh, shaya echad mehen gero mamzer onesin, o zaken shelo roi lebanim. Or, let's say one of the Dayanim is not kosher to be a Dayan on the Sanhedrin. He's a ger, or he's a mamzer, or he's an asin, a Samaritan, which is a false convert. Or, and this is the most strange, he's an elderly person who's not capable of bearing children. That person is not qualified to judge. Rashi says, I don't know why that should be, but in it, hareze pater. But the Beistin is pater from bringing a par helim davar if they issue an erroneous ruling when one of the Dayanim is unfit. So the Rambam in his Perush HaMishnayos says, I'll tell you why an elderly person is not fit to be a judge. Because once you can no longer have children, you no longer have the compassion and sensitivity needed to rule a compassionate judgment. When a person has the ability to sire children and is of that child-rearing age, they're not, what's the word, crotchety? Or cogity, or whatever the word is? They're not grumpy old men. But once you become a certain age, you become somewhat insensitive. And therefore, you're no longer qualified to issue a compassionate ruling that, has real teeth in it.
It could be sinah, kinah.
Could it be sinah, kinah? I don't know. I'm just telling you what the Rambam says. Shenemar kan eda v'nemar lahalan eda. Ma eda hamur lahalan kulon ru'uyin lahora. Af eda hamur kan achi kulon ru'uyin lahora. And this latter halacha, that they all have to be fit judges, kosher to be dayanim, I know that exempts them from a par helim davar if one of them was unfit, based on a gzeira shava. It says over here the word eda to describe the Beistin. And it says in Parshas Baloscha that when Moshe Rabbeinu was, told Hashem, I can't handle this myself anymore, and Hashem said, take 70 elders, it also uses the word eda. And so just like over there, the eda that Moshe chose, all of them had to be worthy of being poskim, of being proper dayanim. So too in our halacha over here, in order to be liable a par helim davar, every one of the 70 or 71 members of the Sanhedrin have to be ro'i lahora, they have to be able to be a dayan. So the Gemara now says, O shalah haya mufla shel Beistin shaminalan. But let's go back to that prior halacha, which is that if the senior member of the Sanhedrin is absent that day, then there's no par helim davar. So where do you know that from? Amar Rav Sheshes v'chein tana devei Rabbi Yishmael mipnei ma omru haru bedavar shatstukim modim bo peturim v'mnei shahaya lehem lilmod v'lo lamdu. So lo haya mufla shel Beistin sham nami peturin v'mnei shahaya lehem lilmod v'lo lamdu. He says, let's go back to yesterday's Gemara. What did we say? That if the Beistin errs in such an explicit biblical law that even the Tzedukim acknowledge that it's law, you don't need Torah Sheba'al Peh to tell you it because it's explicit in the Torah. So we said the Beistin bears no responsibility because clearly there's an ignorance factor there, and that ignorance should be compensated by the common man. It's not, you can't place the onus solely on the Sanhedrin. Now, if the senior member of the Sanhedrin is present, there's also an ignorance problem within the Sanhedrin. If they only would have consulted with the senior member, they would have known not to make that error. And the fact that he's not there, therefore, no longer places them on the hook that the Torah does to bring a sin offering. It was just ignorance. And that's the reason why the halacha doesn't apply. Ne'emar sham eda v'ne'emar kan eda ad shukulan ru'in lahora. And this final halach of the Mishnah, that they all have to be kosher dayanim, worthy of being dayanim, of paskening. So we know that from Parshas Bahaloscha, when Moshe was appointed with 70 judges. So v'hasa minol, and how do you know that there too they all had to be worthy of being dayanim? The Amar Rav Chisda Amar Kravi hisyatzavu sham imach b'daimimach. That Hashem said that these 70 men will stand there together with you in the Ohel Moed. So with you implies that they have to be of your stature, just like you, Moshe, are worthy of being a posek. They too have to be worthy of being poskim and being dayanim. But wait a minute, ve'ema imach lishchina. But maybe all imach means is that they have to be just like you, of being righteous, of having the divine presence rest upon them. And the divine presence can rest on anyone, even if halachically they're not capable of being a dayan. The divine presence can rest even on a mamzer, right? Because that's not a criterion for divinity and righteousness. So Ella Amar of Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar Kra v'nasu'u itach b'domim lach. There's another phrase in that parsha that says they shall bear the burden with you. So bearing the burden with you means that just like you, Moshe, have to bear the burden of paskening and being a dayan, they too will have to be dayanim as well. And that's how I know it. Let's go on to the next Mishnah.
If the Sanhedrin doesn't bring the korban, does the individual who sinned have to bring it? No.
Well, remember, this is like there's a lot of complexity in this system. But we saw machlokes in the previous Gemaras whether an individual sins, does he have to bring a chatas because the Sanhedrin may not have the culpability just because of individual sins. But our next couple of Mishnayos are going to teach us who is responsible for bringing the bull. This bull, which is the atonement for the Sanhedrin's mistake, who brings it? Does the tzibur bring it, or does the Sanhedrin bring it? I don't know if there's anything more to your question, but remember, there's a lot of complexity to that, a lot of hierarchy. Let's go on to the next Mishnah. Horu based in shogigin va'asu kol alkohol shogigin mevi'in par mezidin va'asu shogigin mevi'in kispo seira shogigin va'asu mezidin harei elu piturin. So the Mishnah gives us three possibilities. The first possibility is the standard, which is that the Beis Din acts innocently and makes a mistake, and they mistakenly say, for example, that you can eat chaylev. And like we said yesterday, they're not totally uprooting the mitzvah of chaylev. They're saying a certain kind of chaylev, the one that's, let's say, on the intestine, you can eat, even though other kinds of chaylev are forbidden. So they make an innocent and honest error. And then the congregation, based on that honest error, themselves make an honest error, and they go ahead and eat that chaylev. So in that case, the Beis Din has to bring a par. They have to bring a bull to atone once they discover their mistake. The second permutation is less common, and I don't see how it could even ever really happen in real life. The Sanhedrin acts maliciously. They know that you're not allowed to eat chaylev, but they decide collectively that they're going to tell Klal Yisrael to eat chaylev anyway. I have no idea why the Mishnah even has to undertake this question. Because
the consequences could be worse if you don't.
What?
Let's say some foreign nation forces them to eat some trade or die.
Okay, maybe that's a good example. Maybe what Rabbi Black is saying is maybe they're telling people, go ahead and eat chaylev because we're under religious persecution, so we tell everyone, go ahead and eat chaylev. And they know what they're telling them is the wrong instruction. So if the tzibur acts innocently, thinking that the Sanhedrin has permitted them to eat chaylev, so then the halacha is that they bring a korban chatas, they bring the individual korban chatas of a she-goat or a she-sheep, and not the Sanhedrin. And the third permutation is shogigin va'asu mezidin, that if the Beis Din makes an innocent mistake, and everyone else in the community knows that the Beis Din are a bunch of blunderers, and they know that chaylev is aser, but they go ahead and eat it anyway, b'mezid. So then in that situation, there's no korban chatas at all, because everyone acted b'mezid. Anyone who ate it acted b'mezid. So you don't bring a korban chatas when you do it b'mezid. So the Gemara now says, Shogigin va'asu mezidin hari elu piturin, hashogig dumi demezid chayav, v'hechidami shahoru beistin shechelev mutar v'nischalef lahem b'shuman va'achlu. Lema tiv shadha deboy rami bar chama. So the Gemara now says that I want to make a diuk. I want to make an inference. My inference is like this. What did the Mishnah say? That when the Beis Din is shogeg, an innocent mistake, and the kahal acts b'mezid, that's when they don't bring a korban chata. So what do I want to infer from there? When they are not totally b'mezid, but they're a shogeg that is close to being mezid, then it sounds like they do bring a korban. Now, what is shogeg close to mezid? When they are somewhat complicit, even though they're acting by accident. Somewhat complicit, acting by accident, combined together. What's an illustration of that? We saw previously. Beis Din says it's okay to eat chaylev, but they contribute to the blunder. Why? Because they think what they're eating is shuman, and instead they end up eating chaylev. That was a question that we had a couple days ago. What's the halacha in that case? Is that Beis Din's responsibility, or is it their responsibility because they didn't realize that they were eating chaylev, so they've contributed to that blunder? So the Gemara says from here you can infer that it's the Beis Din's responsibility, because it sounds like that Tzibor is patur from bringing a korban. The Beis Din doesn't have to bring a par in that case, but it sounds like if they're shogeg but close to mezid, where they've contributed to the blunder, then the Beis Din has to bring a par, right? So the Gemara now says, no, Amar Lecha mishum detana reisha mezidin v'asu shogigin tana sefer shogigin v'asu mezidin. It could be that there's no inference to be made. You're trying to make a diuk from the language, but the language could be just for symmetry purposes. And really, the only reason it said the Beis Din was shogeg and the tzibur was mezid was because the previous case was where the Sanhedrin was mezid and the tzibur was shogeg. But there's no intention for you to infer anything else other than the symmetry of the language, instead of inferring that it's only when they're mezid is there no korban, but if they're shogeg close to mezid, then there is a korban. There's nothing to infer. Let's go on to the next mission. This goes back to what Mark was asking. Horu Beis Din va'asu kol hakohol oruban al pihem mevi'in par uvavodas kochavim mevi'in par v'soir diver Reb Meir. So we have a machlokes of multiple tanoim, and the Bryce is going to elaborate when we see it in the Gemara. The first opinion that we see is that of Rabbi Meir. He says that when the congregation eats chaylev based on the erroneous instruction of the Sanhedrin, so then who brings the par? The Sanhedrin brings the par. And if the Sanhedrin instructs them to worship idolatry, then there's two animals, not just a bull, but a bull and a goat. Because that's based on the Torah in Parsha Shlach, from where we learned that if they instruct them to worship Avodah Zarah, they also have to bring a goat. Now Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Yud Beis Shvatim Mevin Yud Beis Parim, Uvavodas Kolchavim Mevin Yud Beis Parim v'Yud Beis Seirim. Rabbi Yehuda argues, and he says, the onus of bringing the animal sacrifice is upon the people who ate the chaylev, not upon the Sanhedrin. And furthermore, Rabbi Yehuda holds that each shevet is its own kahal, is its own congregation. And therefore, since there are 12 congregations that sinned, each shevet has to bring its korban. So there are going to be 12 karbanos, 12 bulls. And in the case of Avodah Zarah, there'll be 12 bulls and 12 goats. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Yud Gimel Parim, Uvavodas Kolchavim, Yud Gimel Parim, the Yud Gimel Seirim, Par V'Sa'ir L'chol Shevet V'Shevet, Par V'Sa'ir L'Beis Din. Reb Shimon is the third opinion, and he says, I hold that both parties have to bring the animal sacrifice, both the kahal and the judges. And we'll see they're basing this on how they exposit on the psukim. So Reb Shimon says, if all 12 tribes sin, so then there's 12 bulls for the kahal and a 13th bull for the Sanhedrin. And if it's Avodah Zarah, then it's 12 bulls and 12 goats, plus a 13th bull and a 13th goat for the Sanhedrin. Horu Beis Din va'asu zayin shvatim oruban al pien mevi'in par uvavodas kolchavim mevi'in par v'sor diver Reb Meir. Now that's if everyone sins. What if you only have a majority who sins? So the example of a majority is 7 tribes out of 12 sin. So, according to Rabbi Meir, the halacha is the same. The Sanhedrin is the party who's responsible. They bring one bull, and if it's avodah zarah, they bring one bull and one goat. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Zayin Shvatim Shechatu Mevim Zayin Parim, Ushvar Shvatim Shalochatu Mevin Al Yedei Par, Shaf Elu Shalochatu Mevim Al Yedei Chotim. And Rabbi Yehuda goes according to his shita. He says it's the Kahal's responsibility. So how many tribes sinned? 7. How many bulls?
7.
So that's what he first says. But then he modifies it and he says the other 5 also have to bring a bull.
Really?
Yeah. Why? Because once the majority of Klal Yisrael have sinned, everyone else has to share in that responsibility. Now, what's not clear is that only when it's the majority have sinned? What if only one Shevet has sinned? That's the ambiguous part of Rabbi Yehuda. To what extent do the other Shvatim have to bear in the responsibility based on the fact that it was the Sanhedrin HaGadol that gave the instruction? So the Gemara is going to clarify that from a brisa when we turn the page. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Ches Parim uvavodos kolchavim Ches Parim v'Ches Seirim, Par v'Sor l'chol Shevet v'Shevet, Par v'Sor l'Beistin. Reb Shimon, again, holds that both parties, both the Sanhedrin and the Shvatim, have to bring a korban. So he says if 7 Shvatim sinned, there's going to be 8 bulls, 7 for the Shvatim and then the 8th one for the Beis-Din. And for Avodah Zarah, 8 bulls and 8 goats. Now he doesn't say the added part that Rabbi Yehuda says that the other Shvatim also have to bring. It's unclear whether he agrees or disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda. Next, Beis-Din shel echad min hashvatim va'asa oso hashevet al pihen, oso shevet hu chayev ushar kol hashvatim peturim divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Now Rabbi Yehuda tells us an additional chiddush that is going to be disagreed upon by the other Tanoim. He said, up until now, who has been the body who instructs people to sin? It's the Sanhedrin in Yerushalayim, the central Supreme Court, right? But what happens if the local Beis-Din, that's for the chief Beis-Din for one Shevet, they give the instruction to, let's say, the Sanhedrin for Shevet Binyamin, the regional Sanhedrin for Shevet Binyamin tells Shevet Binyamin, go ahead and eat chaylev. And Shevet Binyamin eats chaylev on their instruction. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, there too, there's an obligation to bring a par, that the kahal of Binyamin has to bring a par. But in that case, he agrees that all of the other Shvatim are exempt, since it was only a local Beis-Din, the Shevet Beis-Din, who made that ruling. V'chachamim omrim, ein chayavin ela al horayos Beis-Din hagadol, bilvad, shenemar, v'im kol adas Yisrael yishku, v'lo adas oso shevet. And the Chachamim categorically disagree. They say the law of the Par Helam Davar, the whole law of Horayos, only applies when it's the central Beis-Din in Yerushalayim, the Sanhedrin HaGadol. Any lower Sanhedrin, even if they're the chief Sanhedrin of a particular tribe, does not activate this halacha at all. And the way they know that is based on the pasuk. It says, Kol adas Yisrael yishku, that the entire congregation or their legislative body has to make an error, but not the legislative body of one Shevet. The Gemara now says, Tanu Rabbanan, Yadu shahoru v'tohu mahoru, Yachol yehu chayavin tamulomar v'no da'ah chatas v'lo she'yivadu hachotim. So, now we're getting into a brisa that's going to elaborate on our Mishnah, but the first halacha in the brisa is not something that we've seen yet in our Mishnah. And it tells us something very interesting. Rashi tells us the whole case. What happens if Beis-Din gives an instruction that it's okay to consume something? And the Kahal, based on that instruction, goes ahead and consumes 2 forbidden substances. So let's say the Kahal ends up eating chaylev and they end up eating dam. And then the Sanhedrin realizes they made a mistake, but they don't remember which one they told the people to eat. We can't remember whether we told people it's okay to eat chaylev or whether we told them it's okay to eat dam.
70 people.
It was 70 years ago. It's been a long time.
They know that people are eating both.
We know that people are eating both. We know that we told them it's okay to eat one of them, but we don't remember which one we told them. So in that situation, there is no once they discover their error, okay, fine. But they don't bring a par in that case, because the Torah in the case of par says, V'noda'a hachatas, the sin must be known. It must be known what they instructed people to do. So even though we know who the sinners are, but we have to know what the sin was. So asher chatu'u, the next part of the pasuk says that which they sinned, and that teaches me chatu shnei shvatim mevim shnei parim, chatu shlosha mevim shlosha. This tells me that if 2 shvatim sin, then there are 2 bulls. If 3 shvatim sin, then there are 3 bulls. O eino omer ela chatu shnei yechidim mevim shnei parim, chatu gimel mevim gimel. Or maybe you'll say no, it's not dependent upon whole shvatim. Even if 1 person sins or 2 people sin, each person has to bring a bull based on the Beis Din's error. No. So Talmud lomar hakahal chayav v'chol kahal v'kahal chayav. So it's only a congregation that has to bring the bull, not individuals who sin. So keitzad chatu shnei shvatim mevim shnei parim, chatu zayin mevi'in zayin. So if 2 shvatim sin, they bring 2 bulls. If 7 shvatim sin, they bring 7 bulls. Usha'ar shvatim shelo chatu mevim al yedeihem par. Shafilu elu shelo chatu mevim al yedei hachotim. And the remaining tribes that did not sin, each one has to bring their own par, sort of like to participate in the atonement of their brethren. What? Or you could also say Kol Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh. That's a more positive way of saying it, right? So lekach nemar kahal lechayev al kahal al kol kahal v'kahal divrei Rabbi Yehuda, and that's why it says the word kahal in the pasuk to tell you that each individual kahal, which is a shevet, is liable for its own bull. That's all according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon Omer Zayin Shvatim Shechatu Mevim Zayin Parim Ubeisin Mevin Al Yedehem Par. And Rabbi Shimon disagrees with that, and he says, I agree that each shevet has to bring its bull, but the Sanhedrin also has to bring a bull. So when 7 Shvatim sin, there's going to be 8 bulls. And how do I know this? Shenemar lamata kahal v'nemar lamayla kahal. Ma kahal ha'omer lamayla based in im ha'kahal. Af kahal ha'omer lamata based in im ha'kahal. And the way that he knows that is because Rabbi Shimon looks at the previous, or the pasuk that's written above, and it says, V'ne'elam davar me'einei ha'kahal, that if the matter is hidden from the eyes of the kahal, the eyes of the kahal refers to the dayanim, and ha'kahal refers to the nation. So since that pasuk is referring to both the dayanim and the nation, when the latter verse says hakahal, to tell me about the liability for the bull, it refers to both the judges and the nation. So therefore, both parties have to bring. Rabbi Meir Omer Zayin Shvatim Shechatu based in Mevin Al Yedeim Par Vehin Peturin Nemar Kahal Lamata Venemar Kahal Lamayla Ma Kahal HaOmer Lamayla based in Velot Tzibor Af Kahal HaOmer Lamata based in Velot Tzibor. And Rabbi Meir disagrees, like he does in our Mishnah, and he says the word Kahal, even when it's because it's written in the context of me'einei hakahal, the eyes of the kahal, that phrase eyes of the kahal refers exclusively to the dayanim and not to the nation at all. And therefore, anytime you see the word hakahal, it refers only to the dayanim, and we'll explain why Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Meir disagree. But that's basically why Rabbi Meir says that only the dayanim have to bring a bull and not the kahal. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer Mishmo, and now we get to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, who also is not an opinion that we have seen yet. And he says, in the name of Rabbi Meir, that chatu shisha shvatim vehim rubo shel kahal ozayin afal pisha in a rubo shel kahal mevi'in par. It's the last opinion of the Brisa. We had seen this brought down in yesterday's Gemara, that if you have 6 tribes who sin, and they form the majority in population numbers, so it's a majority, but it's not a majority. It's a majority in population, but not a majority in shvatim, or vice versa. 7 tribes sin, but the 7 tribes do not form a majority in the population. So it's a majority and it's not a majority. So Rav Shimon ben Elazar says that I hold that that's enough of a criterion for the Sanhedrin to be liable to bring a par. Okay, now let's analyze this brisa and see what the differences are based upon. Amar Mar, v'noda ahachatas v'lo she'yivadu hachotin. So the first thing the brisa had said is that the dayanim have to know what sin they erroneously instructed the people to do. So even though they know that the people have sinned, but if they don't remember what sin that they told them is okay to do, they don't bring a par. So mantana, Who's the author of this opinion? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Ravi Tamer Rava Delo Rebbe Eliezer. This is not like Rebbe Eliezer. Ditnan Amar Rebbe Eliezer Manav Shachim Chaylev Achal Chayev Noser Achal Chayev. There's a Mishnah elsewhere that talks about a person who ate a piece of forbidden food, but he doesn't know whether it was chaylev or whether it was nosar, forbidden fat, or expired sacrificial animal product. Either way, he's committed a chiyuv kares, for which by doing it by accident, you have to bring a korban chatas. So Rabbi Eliezer is very sensible about it. He says, I grant you the guy doesn't know what he ate, but we know it was one of two things for which for sure he has to bring a korban chatas. So therefore, he's got to bring a korban chatas. So what do you see from here? That Rabbi Eliezer doesn't require the sinner to know exactly what he did, as long as he knows for sure that he's done something for which he has to bring a korban chatas. So that seems to be different from our brisa. So Rav Ashi Omar, Filu Tema Rabbi Eliezer, Shiny Hacha Dichsiv, Asher Chata'u Aleha. No, says Rav Ashi. Maybe Rabbi Eliezer will agree with our Mishnah because our pasuk says Asher Chatu Aleha, that they have sinned upon it. So that extra phrase tells me that the Sanhedrin has to know what they've instructed. But Hasam Nami Haksiv Asher Chataba. But there too, by the individual sin, it also says that he has sinned upon it, which is extraneous. So what's the difference? The Gemara says, I'll tell you the difference. Ahumi boile pratla misasek. Maybe those extra words by the individual sinner are written to teach me a different halacha to exclude someone who's called a misasek. Now, when it comes to eating a prohibited substance, there's no such thing as a misasek. Once I ingest an item and I benefit from it, it doesn't matter what I was thinking, I'm always going to be liable for a korban chatas. But there's a case called misasek when it comes to Hilchos Shabbos, where I'm not getting personal benefit from my action. Normally, if I accidentally do a malacha, I have to bring a korban chatas, right? Except for a misasek. What is a misasek? Where I'm not even aware of what I'm doing. For example, I think I'm picking up a flower off of the ground that's detached from the ground. And what I don't realize is that the flower is still attached and I'm uprooting the flower. Because I'm not even aware that I'm doing an act of uprooting, that's called a misasek, and I'm putter from bringing a korban chatas. So Rav Ashi suggests that maybe this phrase by the individual sinner is needed to tell me that a misasek doesn't bring a korban. But the words asher chatu aleha by the Beis Din is not referring to that, and therefore it's coming to exclude a case where we don't know exactly which sin it was. Now let's go on to the next. My time at the Rebbe Yehuda. Why does Rebbe Yehuda say he holds multiple things? He holds that the individual shvatim have to bring the korban and not the Sanhedrin. And he also holds that the other shvatim who did not sin also have to bring a par. And he also holds that when an individual shevet's Beis Din makes an error, that's enough to hold liable that particular shevet. So where does he get all of this stuff? Kesover arba kahal iksivi, kahal ha-kahal, kahal ha-kahal. So Rabbi Yehuda looks at the two times it says the word ha-kahal in this parsha of Par Helam Dover, when the Beis Din makes a mistake. And he says the two times it says with the letter Hey, ha-kahal. And both times that letter Hey is superfluous. So every time the word kahal appears with the letter Hey, it's like it being written kahal twice. So therefore you have four kahals that you can exposit upon. So what do those four kahals come to teach? Chad l'chayav kol kahal v'kahal. The first one is to tell me that each shevet is responsible, so there will be a potential of 12 bulls instead of just one bull. V'chad l'hora'ah teluya b'Beis Din, u'maisa tolui b'kahal. The second kahal is to teach me that, like we learned before, it's only when the Beis Din gives the improper instruction and the kahal acts upon that instruction. But if the Beis Din gives the incorrect instruction and they themselves eat the chaylev and not the kahal, right, or any other permutation other than the Beis Din instructs and the kahal acts, then there's no bull. V'chad l'greira. The third time it says kahal is to teach me that not only do the sinning tribes have to bring, but the other tribes also have to bring. V'chad l'shevet sha'asa b'hora'as Beis Din. And the fourth one is to tell me that even if a tribe sins based on its own Sanhedrin's instructions and not on the Sanhedrin Hagadol, that it also is liable. So that's Rabbi Yehuda. That explains his unique shita in his respective opinions. V'Reb Shimon tlasa kol iksivi. Ha-kahol, kahol, ha-kahol, me'enei ha-kahol, urchei dekrahu, kida amri yinshi me'enei deplanya. Reb Shimon says, I only have 3 kahals to play with. Rabbi Yehuda felt you had 4 kahals to play with. Reb Shimon says, I only see 3, because the one time it says ha-kahal, the letter hey is extraneous. But the pasuk that says me'enei ha-kahal, from the eyes of the congregation, the definite article is necessary. It's like saying from the eyes of Bob, or from the eyes of John, right? That's a definite article, and therefore hey is necessary. It's not extraneous. So therefore, I only have 3 kahals to play with. Chad l'chayav al kol kahal v'kahal. One is like Rabbi Yehuda said, to teach me that each shevet has to bring its own bull. Utrei achrini, what about the 2 others? Nemar lamata kahal v'nemar lamayla kahal. I have 2 others to make a gzeira shava from one kahal to the other. Malahalan based in ima kahal, afkan based in ima kahal. So Reb Shimon will tell you, it's to connect the 2 to tell me that just like one pasuk is referring to the based in together with the people, because the word ha-kahal implies 2 kahals, one is the based in and one is the community, so too the word ha-kahal down below is also referring to both the based in and the community. So the Shvatim bring a bull, plus the Sanhedrin brings a bull. That's how Reb Shimon looks at it. So you see that according to Reb Shimon, when 7 Shvatim sin, the 7 Shvatim have to bring a bull, but the remaining ones do not, because he doesn't have an extra kahal to derive that. Rabbi Meir, kahal ha-kahal lo darish, hilkach trei kahal iksivi. So Rabbi Meir says, anytime the definite article is used, you cannot use it for an extra word. So the definite article of hey doesn't add anything, and therefore I only have 2 kahals to utilize for exposition. Mi boile lenemar lamata kahal v'nemar lamala kahal. Malahalan based in velot tzibor, afkan based in velot tzibor. So the word ha-kahal simply means the congregation. And since it's used in the context of me'enei ha-kahal, it's referring to the Sanhedrin, who are the supervisory eyes of the community. And therefore, anytime the word kahal is mentioned, it refers to only the Sanhedrin and not to the nation. And that's how I, Rabbi Meir, know that the only party that brings the bull is the Sanhedrin and not the kahal. Reb Shimon ben Elazar, my time. Now let's look at the last opinion of the Brisa, which was Reb Shimon ben Elazar, who says that when you have a majority that's not a majority, or a minority that's a majority, right, then you still bring a bull. So how does he know that? Ksiv v'haya im me'enei ha'eda, alma mi'uta dichsiv me'enei. V'chasiv ki l'chol ha'am bishkaga l'memer deruba in mi'uta lo ha'ketzah. So there's a bit of a contradiction. One pasuk says im me'enei ha'eda. That letter mem implies that there's a subset of the congregation, even a minority, where there's going to be a liability for a bull. But the other pasuk says, Ki l'chol ha'am bishkaga, the entire nation is sinned, which implies you need a majority. So how do you reconcile one pasuk which implies minority and the other pasuk which implies majority? So, asu vav ve'hen rubo shel kahal, o zayin afal pi she'en ruben shel kahal chayav. The answer is, as we just said before, that if it's a majority that's a minority or a minority that's a majority, that's the case that Reb Shimon ben Elazar addresses, either 6 tribes that are a majority population or 7 tribes that are a minority population. That's when you have to bring a carbon. Now, v'Reb Shimon v'Reb Meir dehorat tluya bevesin u'maisa tali b'kol minolu. Now, there's only one problem. If you've noticed, only Rabbi Yehuda had an extra word in the pasuk to teach me that the Beis Din has to be the ones giving the instruction and the Kahal have to be the ones acting upon the instruction. But where do Reb Shimon and Reb Meir know that detail from if they don't have an extra Kahal to learn that from? So Amar Abaye da Amar Krav v'haya im me'enei ha'eda ne'esisa lishkaga. So Abaye says from the following phrase, it says, if from the eyes of the congregation it has been done accidentally. Not that they did it accidentally, but in the passive, it has been done accidentally. That implies that the people who are making the mistake are not the same party who is acting upon the mistake. And that teaches me the Sanhedrin gives the instruction, and the Kahal is the one, the populace is the one who acts upon it. Rava Amar milachol ha'am bishkaga. And Rava says, you learn it from this phrase, ki lachol ha'am bishkaga, which implies that the nation is the one who has made the mistake, because the word kol ha'am refers to the nation, not to the Sanhedrin. So utzricha. So Abaya's got his opinion, Rava's got his opinion, but at the end of the day, you've got 2 phrases that end up teaching you the same thing. Why do you need both phrases? The ikas of Rachmana v'haya im me'enei ha'eda neses alishkaga hava amina afilu miuta lachiksiv l'chol ha'am bishkaga. If I would have only had the first phrase, that seems im me'enei, from the eyes of the congregation, which implies even if a minority act upon it, there's an obligation. So therefore, you need the second phrase to tell me l'chol ha'am. You need to have a majority in order for to trigger the din of the bull. V'ikos of l'chol ha'am bishkaga havamina ada avdi beistin b'hadi ruba lachiksiv v'haya imeinei ha'eda neses alishkaga. So if I would have only had the second phrase, ki l'chol ha'am bishkaga, the word kol ha'am might imply that everyone has to act upon the eating of the chalev, both the populace and the Sanhedrin. And therefore it says, im me'enei ha'eda ne'eses alishkaga, to teach me that it's another party other than the Beis Din that has eaten the chalev that activates the obligation of the par. And so therefore, even if the Beis Din does not participate in the eating, there's still a liability of the bull. So the Gemara asks a basic question. These two phrases of Psukim are not in Sefer Vayikra. They're found in Sefer Bamidbar, which talks about the specific sin of Avodah Zarah, which Beis Din instructs us to commit erroneously. So how can you learn from the case, specific case, special case of Avodah Zarah, and apply it to any time they instruct us erroneously, let's say to eat chalev? So the Gemara answers it's a gzeira shava because the word me'ene appears in both parshios, and it therefore connects the halachas of one to the other. Let's go weiter. Horu Beis Din shel echad v'chulei. If the Beis Din of only one tribe instructs them, so we said that Rabbi Yehuda's shita is that what? Only that tribe brings the par, and no one else brings the par. Iboyelahu shevet echad l'Rebbi Yehuda b'horas Beis Din hagadol mi maisi shar shvatim alo mi amrinan shiva shvatim hu demaisu shar shvatim b'hadayu mishum deika ruba aval chad shevet eleka ruba lo odilma lo shna. So our question is like this. We know that according to Rabbi Yehuda, when the local tribal Sanhedrin instructs them to eat chalev, and they act upon it, so that only that tribe has to bring a par. But what if one tribe only acts upon the instructions of the Sanhedrin Agadol, who tells them to eat chalev? But it's only one tribe, it's not a majority. So does everyone else have to bring a par? Do all the other 11 Shvatim have to bring a par? Or is it only that Shevet that has to bring a par because they're a minority? And maybe Rabbi Yehuda only holds that the other Shvatim have to join together with them when a majority of the Shvatim have sinned. So Tashma, Mahin Mevian Par Echad, Reb Shimon Omer Shnei Parim. Let's look at another brisa. The brisa says, what do they bring? One bull. Rabbi Shimon says they bring 2 bulls. Now we don't know exactly what the brisa is talking about because we're coming into it in the middle. It's like a fragment of a brisa. So b'may askina. So what is that brisa talking about? If you're telling me that the Tanakam is talking about where 7 Shvatim sinned, and therefore there's the bringing of 1 bull, maybe that goes like Rebbe Meir, right? But that according to that, and so that's a majority of Klal Yisrael, but according to Reb Shimon, if 7 Shvatim sin, how many bulls have to be brought? Not 2 bulls, but rather 8 bulls. 7 for the Shvatim, and an additional 1 for the Sanhedrin. So Ela Dechater Shevet Echad. So what's the alternative? That 1 Shevet sinned. And therefore the Tanakama says, like Rebbe Yehuda, 1 bull, and Rebbe Shimon says 2 bulls. So B'mai, Iba Horas Beis Dino, Reb Shimon Lesley. So we can't be talking about where it's the local tribal Beis Din, because Rebbe Shimon doesn't hold of that halacha. That's unique to Rebbe Yehuda. Elalav B'horas Beis Din Agadol. V'Tanakama money. So it must be that the Sanhedrin Hagadol in Yerushalayim instructed them to eat chalev, and 1 Shevet acted upon it, and therefore they bring 1, and according to Reb Shimon, it's 2. 1 for them and 1 for the Sanhedrin. So money. So who does this brisa go? Who's the Tanakama? Inema Rebbe Meir Haruba boy. It can't be Rebbe Meir. Rebbe Meir says you need a majority of the Shvatim to sin. So Elalav Rebbe Yehuda. So it must be Rebbe Yehuda. So what do you see from here? That according to Rebbe Yehuda, only that 1 tribe brings the par, and not all of the other 11 Shvatim. So doesn't that answer your question? So Amri Hacha b'mayaskina kegon shechatu shish Shvatim vein Ruben shel kahal. Reb Shimon ben Elazar, the Tani Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer mishmao chatu shisha vein Ruben shel kahal shiva avol pisha eno Ruben shel kahal mevian par. You misunderstood the brisa. really the Tanakama is not Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanakama is Reb Shimon ben Elazar. And it's not that one shevet sinned, but rather a majority that's a minority sinned. Either 6 tribes that have a majority population, or 7 tribes that are a minority population. So according to Reb Shimon ben Elazar, who holds like Rabbi Meir, they bring one bull, like Rabbi Meir says, one bull that the Sanhedrin brings, and that's the liability. And Rabbi Shimon argues, and he says you bring 2. One has to be brought by the people, and one has to be brought by the Sanhedrin. So that's how you could understand it, and therefore you have no proof as to what Rabbi Yehuda's Shita is when one tribe sins based on the instruction of the Sanhedrin Hagadol. So Tashma, let's look at another brisa, which is much more explicit, and it's not just a fragment. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shevet Sha'asa Bahoras Beis Dino Oso HaShevet Chayv Ushar Kol HaShvatim Peturin Uvahoras Beis Hagadol Afilu Shar Shvatim Chayav and Shmamina. This is explicit. It says that according to Rabbi Yehuda, if one Shevet sins based on its tribal based instruction, so only that Shevet brings a bull. But if the one Shevet sinned based on the Sanhedrin Hagadol's instruction, so then that tribe brings a bull, and all other 11 tribes bring a bull.
That's the minority.
Even though they're the minority, still Kol Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh. Amar Rav Ashi Masnisa Namidika Dikatani Ve'asa Oso Hashevet Al Pihem. You don't need that explicit brisa. You can actually infer that from the language of our Mishnah, says Rav Ashi, because it says Ve'asa Oso Hashevet Al Pihem. Because in describing Rabbi Yehuda's Shita, that if the tribe acts upon its tribal based in, it says that if they act upon that based in, so then that shevet is chayev. Ushar kol hashvatim peturim lamali. So shar kol hashvatim peturim. But then it says, and all the other tribes are patur. So lamali lamisner shar shvatim peturim hatana oso shevet chayev. Ekibet oso shevet chayev. Meli yadanu shar shvatim peturim. Why did it have to add that phrase in the Mishnah that the other tribes are patur? Once you tell me that that tribe is chayev, by inference, I know that the other tribes are not chayiv. So why did you have to add that? Elaha kamashmalan de behoras based dino hu de shar shvatim peturim. Avol behoras based in agadol afilu shar shvatim chayovim shmamina. That added phrase is teaching me as follows. It's only because they acted upon their local tribal Sanhedrin that only that tribe has to bring a carbon and no one else is chayiv. But when they acted upon the instruction of the Beis Hagadol, not only does that shevet have to bring, according to Rabbi Yehuda, but all the other 11 shvatim have to bring as well. So that conclusively proves that Kol Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh applies even when only one shevet committed a sin. We'll just go a few more lines. Ibaya lahu shevet echad sha'asa behoras based in Hagadol Reb Shimon mimaisi olo. Now let's ask a question according to Reb Shimon. Let's say one shevet acts upon the instructions of the Beis Din Hagadol. Reb Shimon had said that the Kahal is chayiv and the Sanhedrin is chayiv. Does Reb Shimon hold that in this case that the par applies to both that one shevet and the Sanhedrin, or does he require a majority of shvatim? So Tashma Mahin Mevian Par Echad Reb Shimon Omer Shnei Parim. So remember that brisa fragment that we saw before. The Tanakama said 1 bull and Reb Shimon said 2 bulls. Now, Shnei Parim, Shmona Parim boy. And if Reb Shimon requires the majority and of Shvatim, he should say 8 bulls, not just 2 bulls. Ella dechata shevet echad uvamai. So you must conclude that only one shevet sinned. And upon whose instruction did they sin? Ilay mebaharas beis dino Reb Shimon Lesle. It can't be that the local tribal based and instructed, because Reb Shimon doesn't hold of that. That's unique to Rabbi Yehuda. Ella baharas based in Agadol. So it must be that this one tribe is acting on the instruction of the Beis Din Hagadol. So you see from this brisa that according to Reb Shimon, both that one tribe and the Sanhedrin has to bring a par even when only one shevet sinned. So the Gemara says, but wait a minute, v'tispera Tanakama money. But then who is the Tanakama? Rabbi Meir Haruba boy. If it's Rabbi Meir, that can't be, because Rabbi Meir says you need an actual majority of Klal Yisrael to sin. And Rabbi Yehuda Shvar Shvatim Namu Maisu. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, we've just established that the other Shvatim also have to bring. So Hamani Reb Shimon ben Elazar he Uchidatanya. So we must conclude that it's Reb Shimon ben Elazar, and we're not talking about one shevet that sins, but we're talking about either a majority that's a minority that's a majority, and therefore it's either 6 Shvatim or 7 Shvatim, but not one shevet. And the reason why Reb Shimon says you have to bring 2 is 1 for the majority, and one for the Sanhedrin. So you have no raya from here that what Reb Shimon will hold regarding when only one shevet sins. You have no raya from that brisa. And this is where we're going to have to hold it today because we're really out of time.